American hostages. That is the explosive, unfiltered term a sitting world leader used to describe them. 10 American citizens, swallowed by the notoriously grim and politically charged prison system of Venezuela, their fates hanging by a thread in a game of high-stakes international chess. Their freedom, secured just recently, came at what many are calling a staggering and potentially reckless price: the release of over 200, possibly as many as 250, Venezuelan nationals. But these were not just ordinary migrants or political dissidents. The group included many individuals accused of being hardened members of Tren de Aragua, one of South America's most feared and brutally violent transnational criminal organizations. This was not a simple prisoner swap. It was a complex, shadowy geopolitical gambit played out across 3 nations, a deal shrouded in deep controversy and fraught with unimaginable peril. Today, we are going deep inside the incredible, multi-layered story of the U.S.-Venezuela prisoner exchange. We are going to unpack the details of this monumental trade. Who were the 10 Americans who finally tasted freedom, and what kind of nightmare did they endure? We will expose the truly brutal nature of the Tren de Aragua gang, a criminal empire whose foot soldiers were just sent back to their home turf. We will also analyze the shocking and pivotal role of the surprising third party in this deal, El Salvador's controversial strongman president, Nayib Bukele. And finally, we will dissect the political firestorm this deal has ignited back in the United States, asking the ultimate, uncomfortable question: was this a stunning triumph of back-channel diplomacy that brought our people home? Or was it a dangerously naive concession that legitimizes hostage-taking and puts countless more Americans at risk in the future? The story of what happened is a labyrinth of political maneuvering, clandestine negotiations, and heartbreaking human drama. The release of 10 American citizens from Venezuelan custody marked the end of a long and agonizing ordeal for their families. These individuals, whom the United States government officially designated as wrongfully detained, were not captured on a battlefield or convicted of legitimate crimes in a transparent legal system. The term wrongfully detained is a specific, powerful designation used by the State Department. It signifies that the United States does not see the detention as lawful and believes the individuals are being held as political pawns. For these 10 people, this meant being ensnared by the Venezuelan regime under what one top American official called highly questionable circumstances and without proper due process. Imagine the psychological terror of being arrested in a foreign country, accused of baseless charges, and thrown into a prison system infamous for its overcrowding, violence, and lack of basic human necessities. This is a world where legal rights are a fiction, where the next meal is not guaranteed, and where medical care is often non-existent. These individuals were trapped in a limbo designed to break the human spirit, a deliberate strategy of attrition where the only currency is their American passport. Their release is not just a return to freedom, it's an escape from a calculated, state-sponsored nightmare. You are a bargaining chip. Your life's value is not determined by your innocence, but by your passport. Every day is a struggle for survival, a battle against despair, while your government engages in delicate, often secret negotiations half a world away. The joy and relief upon their return to American soil is, of course, immense and undeniable. As Senator Marco Rubio, a prominent voice on foreign policy concerning Latin America, declared, "Every wrongfully detained American in Venezuela is now free and back in our homeland." This is the human victory at the heart of the deal, a moment of pure, unadulterated success. But to understand the true cost of that victory, we must turn our attention to the other side of the ledger. The price for those 10 American lives was the freedom of roughly 250 Venezuelans. And this is where the story shifts from a heartwarming rescue mission to a deeply troubling moral and strategic dilemma. These were not just Venezuelan citizens held for immigration violations. They were inmates at a high-security prison in El Salvador, transferred there under an agreement with the previous Trump administration. And according to El Salvador's own president, many are accused members of the terrifying criminal syndicate known as Tren de Aragua. To grasp the gravity of this, you need to understand what Tren de Aragua is. This is not a local street gang. It is a sophisticated, transnational criminal corporation born in the prisons of Venezuela. Let's be crystal clear about who these people are. The name Tren de Aragua translates to the Aragua train, a reference to its origins within the Tocaron prison in Venezuela's Aragua state. The train refers to the powerful inmates who controlled the prison, the Pranes. From this incubator of violence, they built a sophisticated criminal hierarchy. Their portfolio is horrifically diverse. They run extortion rackets called vacunas, or vaccines, where small business owners and even humble street vendors must pay a fee for protection from the gang itself. They have perfected the art of express kidnapping, grabbing individuals for short periods to drain their bank accounts. And their expansion into human trafficking is particularly monstrous. They target desperate Venezuelan migrants, promising them safe passage and jobs, only to force women and girls into sexual slavery and men into forced labor in illegal mines or as drug mules. Their signature is extreme violence, often filmed and distributed on social media to terrorize entire communities and rival gangs into submission. Releasing over 200 men accused of belonging to this network is like returning trained sharks to the ocean. The concern is not just that they will commit more crimes, but that they will bring their organizational knowledge, their ruthlessness, and their international connections back to a headquarters that is effectively a failed state, providing them with a secure operational base. The thought of a government willingly releasing members of such a brutal organization is chilling. And the fact that it was orchestrated with a president known for his zero-tolerance policy on gangs makes it even more mind-boggling. If you are finding this deep dive into the shadowy world of international diplomacy fascinating, show some support by hitting that like button. It really helps us bring more stories like this to light. The involvement of El Salvador and its president, Nayib Bukele, is perhaps the most fascinating and unexpected twist in this entire saga. Bukele has built his entire political brand on being the world's toughest crime fighter. He has become famous, and in some circles, infamous, for his mano dura, or iron fist approach to dealing with El Salvador's powerful street gangs like MS-13 and 18th Street. He has suspended civil liberties and built a colossal, state-of-the-art mega prison, a symbol of his promise to eradicate gang violence from his country. So why on earth would this man, the self-proclaimed hammer of criminals, agree to release 250 alleged gangsters from his custody? The answer lies in the complex world of international relations and political opportunism. By acting as the crucial intermediary, holding the Venezuelan prisoners and then handing them over, Bukele positioned himself as an indispensable partner to the United States. He demonstrated his ability to operate effectively and discreetly on the world stage, a valuable asset for a global superpower. This move is classic Bukele, a blend of authoritarian muscle and savvy public relations. At home, he can frame this as cleansing his nation of foreign criminals, a promise kept to his populace. Internationally, he gets to play the role of the pragmatic dealmaker, a leader the United States can turn to when it needs a difficult job done quietly. It's a masterful navigation of his own controversial image. He simultaneously reinforces his iron fist persona by expelling gang members while softening it by playing a constructive role in international diplomacy. This act allows him to deflect criticism about his human rights record by making himself strategically indispensable to the world's most powerful nation. It's a high-wire act of realpolitik, and so far, he seems to be keeping his balance. Furthermore, Bukele is a master of political messaging, primarily through social media. He did not issue a dry diplomatic press release. He took to X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, to control the narrative himself. He confirmed that all the Venezuelans, whom he pointedly noted were accused of being part of Tren de Aragua, were handed over. And in a masterstroke of political framing, he stated that this was done in exchange for the release of American hostages and Venezuelan political prisoners. His choice of the word hostages instead of the more diplomatic wrongfully detained was no accident. It is a much more visceral, emotionally charged word that paints the Venezuelan regime as nothing more than a criminal enterprise engaged in kidnapping. It aligns with his own tough-on-crime persona and sends a powerful message to both his domestic audience and the international community. For Bukele, this was a strategic win-win. He helps the United States achieve a major foreign policy goal, rids his country of 250 foreign criminals, and burnishes his image as a decisive international player, all with a few calculated posts on social media. Back in the United States, the reaction to the prisoner swap has been a mixture of relief and intense debate, often falling along predictable political lines. The statement from Senator Marco Rubio is particularly telling. He unequivocally welcomed the release of the 10 Americans, but he was very specific about who deserved the credit. He attributed the success to President Donald Trump's leadership and commitment to the American people. This is a fascinating political angle. It suggests that the framework for this kind of hardball negotiation was established during the Trump administration, which was known for its maximum pressure campaigns against Venezuela, but also for its willingness to engage in direct, transactional diplomacy to secure the release of American citizens. Rubio's statement serves to both celebrate the outcome and to score political points, framing the event not just as an American victory, but as a validation of a specific, tough-minded political approach. This taps into a long-running, deeply divisive debate within American foreign policy circles. This isn't happening in a vacuum. The United States has a history of these agonizing choices. Think of the swap for basketball star Brittany Griner, which involved the release of notorious arms dealer Victor Bout, the Merchant of Death. Each of these deals reignites the same fiery debate. Critics argue that they create a dangerous market for American lives, signaling to rogue states and terrorist groups that kidnapping Americans is a profitable enterprise. Proponents, including the families of the detained, counter with a simple, powerful question. If it were your son, your daughter, your spouse, what would you want your government to do? This particular deal is further complicated by the political calendar and the figures involved. By crediting the Trump administration, Senator Rubio is not just offering praise, he is drawing a direct contrast with the current Biden administration's approach, subtly suggesting that this success is an echo of a past, tougher policy, rather than a triumph of the current one. It transforms a national security issue into a potent political weapon in an already deeply polarized environment. This prisoner exchange is a textbook example of that very dilemma. 10 families are celebrating, but has the cost of their joy been to raise the price on the head of every other American abroad? There is no easy answer, and the debate is sure to rage on. The final, and perhaps most telling, piece of this complex puzzle is the one that is missing: the sound of silence from Caracas. While Washington and San Salvador were making public statements, the Venezuelan government remained conspicuously quiet. No triumphant press conference celebrating the return of their 250 citizens. No defiant speech decrying American imperialism while simultaneously taking credit for a successful negotiation. This silence is deafening, and it speaks volumes. Why would they stay quiet? One possibility is that they want to control the narrative domestically. Acknowledging a direct swap with the United States could be seen as a sign of weakness, an admission that they had to bargain with their chief adversary. Furthermore, the Maduro regime has to manage its own internal image. While it projects an image of defiant strength against American imperialism, the reality is that the country is crippled by sanctions and economic mismanagement. This swap, while securing the return of its nationals, is also a tacit admission that it needs to engage with Washington. It's a crack in the facade of absolute defiance. Acknowledging the deal too loudly could be perceived by hardliners within the regime as a concession, a sign that Maduro is willing to bend to American pressure. Therefore, silence becomes the most politically expedient strategy. It also avoids the awkward public relations problem of welcoming back a large number of accused members of a notorious criminal gang. It is one thing to secure their release. It is another thing entirely to celebrate it publicly. The silence suggests that this was a purely transactional deal, a cold calculation from which the Venezuelan regime derived a benefit they would rather not advertise. They got their people back, but in doing so, they had to engage with the very nation they constantly vilify, making the entire affair something best left in the shadows. The long-term consequences of this deal will unfold for months, even years to come. It has changed the geopolitical landscape in Latin America, elevated the status of President Bukele, and brought 10 American families immense relief. But it has also raised profound questions about the nature of diplomacy in a world where the lines between nation-states and criminal organizations are becoming increasingly blurred. Will this bold move pave the way for a new kind of dialogue between Washington and Caracas, or will it simply embolden regimes around the world to see American citizens as valuable pawns in a global game? What happens next is anyone's guess, and we will be tracking every development. To ensure you stay ahead of the curve and get our next breakdown on this and other critical global stories, make sure you are subscribed and have clicked that notification bell. You will not want to miss what happens next.